It was a crisp April afternoon in 1985 when Aldrich Ames, a 43-year-old CIA counterintelligence officer, stepped out of his ordinary life and into the shadows. With a plastic shopping bag dangling from his hand, 6 pounds of classified documents stuffed inside, he crossed the threshold of the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. The bag crinkled as he handed it to a man in a drab suit, a KGB officer masquerading as a diplomat. Ames's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the thrill of the $50,000 he'd soon pocket. Names of CIA agents in the Soviet Union, secrets he'd sworn to protect, were now in enemy hands. This wasn't just a delivery. It was the start of a 9-year betrayal that would unravel lives and nations. In the clandestine world of espionage, the line between loyalty and treachery can blur with devastating consequences. This is the story of Aldrich Ames, a veteran CIA officer who, for nearly a decade, lived a double life, betraying his nation to the very adversaries the agency was sworn to counter. His actions would lead to the deaths of American agents and inflict profound damage on U.S. intelligence operations. How could a seemingly ordinary man become one of the most damaging spies in American history? Born in 1941, Aldrich Hazen Ames embarked on a career in intelligence, joining the Central Intelligence Agency in 1962, following in the footsteps of his father, who was also an intelligence analyst. Over the next 2 decades, Ames climbed the ranks, serving in various overseas postings, including Ankara, Turkey, Mexico City, Mexico, and Rome, Italy. His expertise lay in Soviet intelligence, a critical area during the height of the Cold War. However, beneath the veneer of a dedicated public servant, a growing dissatisfaction and significant financial pressures were brewing. By the mid-1980s, Ames was facing significant personal and financial challenges. A costly divorce in 1983 and a subsequent marriage to Rosario Dupuy, a Colombian woman with expensive tastes, left him deeply in debt. It was this financial desperation that propelled him toward an act of unprecedented betrayal. In April 1985, Ames made a fateful decision. He walked into the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C., and offered his services to the KGB. His initial approach was tentative, providing information he later described as essentially valueless. This was a calculated move to test the waters and establish his credibility as a genuine CIA insider. In return for this initial offering, Ames requested $50,000, a sum that would temporarily alleviate his immediate financial woes. The KGB, recognizing the immense potential of a high-ranking CIA officer willing to cooperate, readily agreed, marking the beginning of a deeply damaging espionage operation. That first meeting was bold, reckless even, but Ames wasn't a fool. He knew the risks of strolling into the embassy too often. Cameras, tales, whispers in the halls of Langley. So, he and his handlers, shadowy figures from the KGB's first chief directorate, devised a quieter system. They turned to the art of the dead drop, a method as old as espionage itself, but one Ames wielded with a peculiar finesse. Back in his Arlington neighborhood, he'd stroll past a mailbox at 37th and R Streets NW, chalk in hand. A quick swipe, a horizontal white mark, told his handlers, "The goods are ready." Hours later, under the cover of dusk, he'd slip into a nearby park, a footbridge casting long shadows over a muddy creek. There, he'd tuck a trash bag of photocopied secrets, agent lists, operation plans, beneath a rock or into a hollowed-out stump. By morning, it'd be gone, replaced with a wad of cash or a terse note. More. These dead drops became his rhythm, a silent heartbeat pulsing every few weeks or months. He'd learned the craft at the CIA, how to signal without speaking, how to vanish into the mundane. A vertical chalk mark meant he was ready for a pickup. No mark meant wait. The Soviets, masters of this game, mirrored his moves. They'd sweep in after dark, retrieve the package, and leave their payment, sometimes $20,000, sometimes $200,000, wrapped tight in plastic. Ames would circle back later, a casual dog walker or jogger, pocketing the haul. It was low-tech, almost laughably simple for a man who could have used encrypted radios or coded cables. But that simplicity was his shield. No one suspected a traitor hiding secrets in garbage bags. Yet, Ames couldn't always avoid his handlers' faces. Early on, before the dead drops took over, he'd meet them in D.C., a quiet corner of a restaurant, a brush past on a busy street. The embassy had been the spark, but these fleeting handoffs kept the fire alive. He'd slide a briefcase across a table, their eyes meeting just long enough to confirm the deal, then part ways with cash burning a hole in his pocket. When he moved to Rome in 1986, posted as a CIA officer under diplomatic cover, the game shifted. The Eternal City became his stage, narrow alleys and crowded piazzas perfect for a quick rendezvous. He'd meet his KGB contacts in Italy or slip away to Vienna, even Bogota during supposed business trips. A nod, a bag exchanged, a wad of bills pressed into his palm. These meetings were rare, maybe a dozen over 9 years, but each one carried the weight of treason. Hundreds of thousands of dollars and dozens of lives traded in minutes. Back home, the dead drops ruled. Ames leaned on his chalk signals, a language only he and his handlers spoke. He'd mark a pole near his house, then drive to a drop site, a culvert, a park bench, a bridge, leaving his betrayal behind. The Soviets were meticulous too. They had checked the signals, wait for the all clear, and move like ghosts. Sometimes, Ames would find their replies waiting, a note scratched in Cyrillic, or just the cash, crisp and heavy. It worked because it was invisible, blending into the hum of suburban life. Who'd suspect a CIA man marking mailboxes like a kid playing tag? Ames quickly proved to be an invaluable asset to the KGB. His position within the CIA's Soviet counterintelligence branch gave him access to a treasure trove of highly classified information, including the identities of virtually every American and Allied intelligence agent operating inside the Soviet Union. Driven by an insatiable greed, Ames systematically began to betray these individuals, providing the KGB with their names, contact information, operational details, and even their personal histories. The information Ames provided was not just names on a list. It was the key to dismantling entire intelligence networks. He revealed the existence of crucial human sources who were providing invaluable insights into the inner workings of the Soviet government and military. These were brave individuals who risked their lives and the lives of their families for the cause of freedom and democracy. Ames's betrayal effectively signed their death warrants. Consider this. Ames exposed the identities of individuals who had spent years cultivating trust and building relationships within the Soviet system. He revealed their secret methods of communication, their safe houses, and the very nature of the intelligence they were gathering. This wasn't just a leak of information. It was a systematic dismantling of America's eyes and ears behind the Iron Curtain. Among the most damaging revelations was the exposure of Operation Pimlico, a highly sensitive program involving the recruitment of Soviet military officers. Ames also betrayed details of technical intelligence gathering efforts, including the existence of sophisticated tunnel systems beneath Soviet communications lines that allowed the US to eavesdrop on critical conversations. He compromised Operation Court Jester, which involved a state-of-the-art device used to count the number of nuclear warheads on Soviet intercontinental ballistic missiles, a vital piece of intelligence for maintaining the strategic balance of power during the Cold War. The information Ames provided allowed the KGB to not only neutralize these American assets, but also to understand the extent of U.S. intelligence penetration into their system. This knowledge gave the Soviets a significant advantage, allowing them to plug security gaps, identify potential future informants, and even feed disinformation back to the CIA through compromised channels. Consequences of Ames's treachery were not abstract. They were tragically human. At least 10 individuals who were secretly working for the United States were arrested, interrogated, and ultimately executed by the Soviet Union as a direct result of the information he provided. These were not just names in a file. They were people with families, hopes, and dreams who made the ultimate sacrifice in the service of their country. Imagine the fear and desperation these agents must have felt as the KGB closed in, knowing their identities had been betrayed by someone they likely never even knew. Their families were left in the dark, often unaware of the heroic work their loved ones had been doing, or the horrific circumstances of their deaths. The ripple effects of Ames's betrayal extended far beyond these 10 individuals, creating a climate of fear and suspicion within the intelligence community and making it far more difficult to recruit new sources within the Soviet bloc. One such individual was likely a high-ranking official within the Soviet military who provided crucial early warnings about Soviet intentions and military deployments. Another might have been a scientist working on advanced Soviet weaponry, offering invaluable insights into their capabilities. Yet another could have been a diplomat, providing first-hand accounts of Kremlin decision-making. Each of these individuals represented a vital source of intelligence, and their loss dealt a significant blow to America's ability to understand and counter Soviet threats. The impact wasn't limited to the Soviet Union. Ames's actions also compromised Allied intelligence operations, as he revealed the identities of agents working for other Western nations. This eroded trust and cooperation within the intelligence-sharing community, further weakening the collective ability to counter Soviet influence. The true extent of the damage caused by Ames's betrayal may never be fully known, but it is clear that his greed had a devastating and lasting impact on global security. As the alarming pattern of compromised intelligence assets became undeniable, a desperate hunt for a mole within the CIA began. Initially, investigators struggled to pinpoint the source of the leaks. The KGB was known for its tradecraft, and the sudden exposure of so many agents pointed to a deep-seated betrayal. Suspicion initially fell on various individuals, and the investigation was a slow and painstaking process. However, as the investigation progressed, certain anomalies began to emerge. One of the most significant red flags was the sudden and inexplicable wealth of Aldrich Ames. Despite his relatively modest CIA salary, he made a series of large cash purchases, including a $540,000 house in Arlington, Virginia, and a $50,000 Jaguar automobile. These extravagant expenditures were completely inconsistent with his known income and lifestyle. While Ames attempted to explain his newfound wealth by claiming it came from his wife, Rosario's family in Colombia, investigators found these explanations unconvincing. The sheer scale of his spending, coupled with other suspicious behaviors, began to focus suspicion squarely on him. Ames continued to sell classified information, often delivering documents in a plastic shopping bag during meetings with his handlers. In total, he earned over $2.7 million from the Soviets and later the Russians. His actions compromised numerous CIA and FBI operations, leading to the execution of at least 10 CIA agents in the Soviet Union and affecting over 30 intelligence operations. In 1991, a joint FBI-CIA task force was formed to specifically investigate the losses of Soviet agents. By August 1992, circumstantial evidence strongly pointed towards Ames. In March 1993, the FBI launched a full-scale counterintelligence operation, codenamed Night Mover, to monitor his every move. For 10 months, Ames was under constant surveillance. Agents tapped his phones, installed hidden cameras in his home, and meticulously analyzed his financial records and personal habits. They even resorted to sifting through his trash, hoping to find any shred of evidence that would confirm their suspicions. A crucial breakthrough came when Ames made an unauthorized trip to Caracas, Venezuela, in September 1993. While he claimed it was to visit his wife's family, FBI surveillance revealed him meeting with Russian intelligence officers. This clandestine meeting provided irrefutable evidence of his ongoing relationship with the KGB. The FBI had their man. The meticulous surveillance had paid off, providing the necessary proof to confront and apprehend Aldrich Ames. On February 21, 1994, as Aldrich Ames prepared to leave for a scheduled trip to Moscow on official CIA business, the FBI made their move. He was apprehended outside his home in Arlington, Virginia. His initial denial, "You're making a big mistake. You must have the wrong man," quickly crumbled under the weight of the evidence against him. Facing an airtight case built on months of intensive investigation, Aldrich Ames pleaded guilty to espionage and tax evasion on April 28, 1994. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a fitting punishment for the immense damage he had inflicted on his country. His wife, Rosario Ames, was also convicted for her role in the espionage activities and tax evasion, receiving a sentence of 5 years and 3 months in prison. The exposure of Aldrich Ames sent shockwaves through the highest levels of the U.S. government and the intelligence community. The CIA faced intense scrutiny and criticism for its failure to identify and stop Ames earlier, despite numerous red flags. Then, CIA Director James Woolsey ultimately resigned in the aftermath of the scandal. The Ames case served as a wake-up call, highlighting the vulnerabilities within even the most sophisticated intelligence agencies. In response, the CIA and other intelligence organizations implemented significant reforms to their security procedures, including more rigorous background checks, enhanced monitoring of employees with access to sensitive information, and improved counterintelligence measures. The story of Aldrich Ames is a chilling reminder of the human element in espionage and the devastating consequences of betrayal. Driven by personal greed, he compromised countless lives and inflicted profound damage on U.S. national security. His case stands as a stark warning about the constant vigilance required to protect a nation's secrets and the enduring threat posed by those who would betray the trust placed in them. The legacy of Aldrich Ames serves as a somber chapter in the history of American intelligence, a testament to the darkness that can lurk within even the most trusted circles.